Down and everything.
Right on. Here we go. Here we go.
We are live, and I'm just gonna give
It's not a picture, dude.
Graham a second. Okay, we are live
Awesome.
on Instagram.
Hello, hello.
All right, just 5 minutes late, no big deal, right?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Technology, but
We're getting there. We have technical issues all the time. I was gonna say, Aaron and I were trying to record a podcast today, and we got like an hour and a half down and realized we never hit the record button.
Yeah.
So it happens.
was it a good podcast? So then did you get
Yeah.
and just redo it all?
Yeah, we'll have to redo it all. So unfortunate, but it was a close friend, so
Yeah.
sounds like he's down to do it again.
I love
Lucky
it.
us.
Yeah. So are we kicking this thing off
That's
right now?
Yeah, so we are live, kicking it off. We have people joining in right now. So hello everybody on
Sweet.
Instagram.
Thanks for joining.
Everyone that's joining. I'm Mandy, Ren Windsor, Windsor Gives, all the things. And I am super excited to have Aaron and Mitch on our Move Through the Darkness call tonight. And I'm not going to waste any time. I'm just going to let you guys get after it. We're recording this. So if you jump into this call late, you can, or if you have to leave the call early, you can come back to our YouTube channel later on and watch the full call. But yeah, we want this to be super interactive. So anyone that's joining in, if you guys have questions, comments, drop it in the Instagram message chat here, and I will be sure to read those out to Aaron and Mitch. But we're a go. It looks like we've got Imagine Zero Weld County logged on. I see Shauna and Jason, and we've got all sorts of fun people on here. So let's just get going. Mitch and Aaron,
Awesome.
I'm just gonna let you guys roll with this.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mandy. And thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to do this. Aaron and I, so I guess just a brief backstory, we'll get into it a little bit more, but Aaron and I recently started a podcast called Shattered Darkness, and it's about sobriety, and we focus on drugs and alcohol. Both Aaron and I, at one point in our lives, were very extremely addicted to alcohol, and we both been through the recovery process. I went through a rehab process. Aaron did his kind of more white knuckling it, but yeah, so we started a podcast called Shattered Darkness, and basically what it is we're compiling stories of people in our community that have been through that process, lived their life of addiction, and then kind of went through the process of rehab, and are thriving and succeeding today. So we're compiling those stories in an effort, one, to kind of just to raise awareness on sobriety and that mental health piece of all of it. I've unfortunately had tons of friends that have passed away due to substance abuse. And for me personally, it just got to a place where I was tired of sitting on the sidelines and watching my friends pass away, from this disease. And so after I was able to get through rehab and things like that, we had this vision to do this podcast and really to destigmatize the word alcoholic and to destigmatize the sobriety process, and also hopefully to bridge the gaps in the process. I personally suffered a relapse when I was trying to get into rehab. It was just such a tough process, and it was a very vulnerable state of mind that I was in. So hopefully we can bridge some gaps there and get more immediate help for people somewhere down the road. Something like rideshare programs, things like that. But really, we're just trying to have an honest conversation around the struggles that we've had in our life, and true vulnerability. Come at this thing with true vulnerability. I think that for me personally, in my recovery process, that was key. To really breaking myself down and changing, honestly, how I looked at myself. So, yeah, that's kind of the podcast in a nutshell. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work. It's been extremely rewarding, to have people reach out to us and feel, like we're a safe place to kind of bring those issues, because they're dark, and that's why we named the podcast Shattered Darkness. We want to go into those places that people are struggling and help them find a way out of that. So that's just a little bit about me and the podcast and kind of why I am passionate about that and wanted to do that. So I'll kind of let Aaron give his 2 cents on the backstory there.
Yeah. The one of the biggest things that we've really found throughout this journey that I think is very, very relevant to our call is how strong all of our guests have been, and Mitch included, of being able to talk about the issues. And I don't necessarily like the term toxic masculinity. I really don't. But there is that thing where men, especially, are just bury the feelings. I'm cool. Don't worry about it. I'm fine. And if there, I can remember where I picked up this. I don't know if it's acronym or whatever it is, but FINE stands for um, if oh my gosh, like effed
It's
up,
a
insecure,
neurotic
right,
and yeah, I think it's from
neurotic
a
and
movie.
emotional.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's from a movie.
Yeah. So anyway, really what it is when a guy says he's fine, most of the time he's not. And when there's someone struggling with drugs and alcohol, a lot of times they'll say fine, they're fine, but they're not. And the common thread between all of this is someone finally had the moment in their life to reach out and need help. We
Yeah,
were interviewing an amazing guest today, and he woke up after a crazy day or 2 days. I mean, I don't think really he knows how long it was, and called his grandma, I need help. And that strength right there is so important because you could say it was a rock bottom, but once you have that mental awareness and that light switches on, you need to be brave enough to go to a trusted person. And when I get back to the masculinity stuff, kind of the locker room feel is a lot of guys, we don't want to do that because all of our friends are going to come out, and then there's going to be that one friend that always has a joke and will make fun of us for the rest of our lives. That's kind of the fear. But if you go to North Range, for example, Imagine Zero, there are all these people out there to listen in a spot where it's not going to get blown up everywhere.
right.
Um, and part of my sobriety, part of my healing is being open about it. And part of that was I was in so much pain and I was hiding everything. I say it a lot where every time I walked in the door, I felt like I was lying to Linnea, who's my wife. And I just hid everything, didn't know what to do. And the second I was able to just be vocal about it and be honest with myself, number one, and then with everybody else, that weight was lifted. And I think that translates to not only alcohol. So that's I want to make that very clear that that's not necessarily what we're here to do is talk about that alcohol because I know not everybody has a problem, but any issues you're having, be honest with yourself and find that within you and then go talk to someone, anybody. Sure, you can
Yeah,
call me. I'm here to listen. I know Mitch is as well, Mandy too.
yeah,
We're here to help.
yeah. And I think that's huge, man, because that's why I loved rehab so much. And as growing up and things like that, it was, you talk a little bit about your emotions and things like that. You try to figure it out, but my past too is super, super, super high anxiety and depression, which ultimately led me to drinking. And but I think until I really learned that, hey, it's okay to lay these things out on the table and talk about them. That's what helped me kind of lay myself out on a table and be like, hey, these are the pieces of Mitch Benner that I really like. But I wasn't able to really do that until you're in that environment. Of hey, it's okay, it's safe, like. And I'm not saying like with our podcast we kind of are just shouting this stuff from a rooftop, but in the beginning it was very guided, right? Psychiatrist therapy, things like that, like having those conversations, those hard conversations, and going back as far as like childhood, and things that we experienced as kids, like how that impacts us as adults, and how we lock things down into our subconscious. This one experience happened, and all of a sudden, this belief system, you create this belief system, and it's there, and you don't really realize it. So it's unwinding a lot of those things through therapy and guided meditations and stuff like that. So I totally agree, man. I'm finding that environment of like, I feel safe here. These are people that are kind of going through the same thing that I'm going through. It's relatable. You can get relatable feedback and things that are actually helpful for your situation.
Can I ask you a question that I don't think I've ever really asked you in all this journey, man? Of
Yep.
all, we spent hours talking. Um, and don't worry, I'm not going to get too deep,
No,
but
dude, whatever you want. You know me,
I
I'm an
think
open book, man.
I know. Now dealing with stuff, we kind of this common theme of we don't deal with emotions, we cope with alcohol.
But
Now, again, you're not new to this by any means. I mean, you've been kicking ass for a long time, but how is it dealing with problems now that you realize this? And now we've gone through this
uh,
maybe a couple of times that shit, I can't just, am I allowed to cuss on this, Mandy?
maybe not.
Yeah, yeah,
All
Oh,
right.
they might
Eh,
kick us off of Instagram, but
it might
whatever,
kick us
dude.
off Instagram, so maybe try to keep it, like, a little filtered.
Yeah,
Hey, we're
don't
talking
don't.
about being vulnerable and being ourselves.
It's
What can
fine,
I
Hey,
do?
you do
it's
you,
fine.
buddy.
Yeah.
You might just lose the mom who's, like, or dad who's sitting at the dinner table right now listening, but
Right,
you're
that's what I'm like. Yeah, there might be kids around.
you're fine.
Sorry. But anyway, now that we have to deal with our stuff and
Right.
not cope with the alcohol, it's a learned skill, but how are you doing with this? Because man, just to kind of give you some props,
Honestly, dude.
you're doing great, in my opinion. From what I can see and all this, you're doing amazing. But let's dive deep a little bit
Yeah.
here. And
Mitch, for everyone that's joining, how long have you been sober?
I have actually, so my last drink was June 10th of 2024. So literally just over 6 months. So
Okay.
my rehab process started last October,
Okay.
October of 2023. So I had a relapse in June, which I'm happy to talk about. Because honestly, that was just out of pure boredom,
Yeah, can you share, like, kind of, you don't have to go into the deep
Yeah,
details, like, what spurred that? Was it like "Oh, I've been sober, I can handle it, I can just have one drink," or were you like, "Man, I'm in a bad place, I'm just gonna drown it out with booze?"
and it honestly was really none of that. Like, okay, so I broke my foot in the very beginning of June. I broke my foot. My last drink was in July. Sorry. So I broke my foot in June. So I'm laid up for an entire month. And what I've come to realize since then is that relapse happened out of an idle mind. Out of my body was sitting because I was broken. It would hurt to move around, so I'm dealing with a lot of physical pain and things like that. And honestly, I was just sitting around, and we were in Kansas visiting our family, my wife's family, and there's not a lot to do back there. They live in a very, very small town, and so you sit around a lot. And I've realized my personality, like I have to have my mind engaged in something, and it's when I start to go idle is when those negative thoughts start to creep in, and the anxiety. And honestly, to go back to what it's all funny, all of this ties together because right now, I actually, Aaron, to answer your question, do not feel like I'm dealing with life very well. Like, and I'll just be an open book. Like, I'm a real estate agent. That's my profession. The podcast is kind of a passion project, but I've been doing real estate for 12 years and we're struggling. The market has been tough. Uh, as I said, I started to get sober last October. So, and I'm talking suicidal ideations to the point where I was with a gun and a handle on October 17th. That was like my rock bottom. So coming from that, like it's just sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought. Um,
Well, we were just kind of talking about dealing with
yeah,
stuff now.
right. Sorry. So I don't feel like I'm honestly dealing with things very well. And I even talked to my wife today of like we're dealing with these finances, right? These really intense finances. That's where I was going with this. Uh, and it's scary, it's terrifying. And we're at a place with our podcast where things are going well, but I can't really see what the next step is, and it's kind of this rinse and repeat process. I can't really see what the future of real estate is looking like for us, so I've got a lot of ambiguity going on in my mind and my life. And I literally, like, this weekend, I kind of snapped at my kids, you know, and then my wife was like, dude, what is going on? You know, and so we had to sit down and talk. And I finally like was blurted it out like, I'm not okay. You know, I'm not dealing with what's going on inside of me. Like my anxiety has really been hard to deal with lately. So honestly, it's so funny that you guys both asked those questions because I had these conversations today. Like we're literally talking to debt relief programs and things like that. Like we're trying to figure out how to get out of this situation that I drank us into. Right. So a lot of stuff going on upstairs mentally, you know, and emotionally. And the number one thing that I can give my wife is the truth, you know, of like, hey, this is where I'm at, like truly, you know, and it's hard, right? Like that doesn't just come overnight. Like I grew up in a family where your emotions were like pulled out of you. Like, why did you do this? Why do you feel that way? Like dissect it. So I would consider myself a fairly emotionally intelligent person. Now, emotionally stable, not necessarily, but emotionally intelligent. I know what's going on inside of me pretty much all the time. Uh, so I know like these are now I've got these red flags, right? Like these are situations that in my past would cause me to go and drink because I don't really know how to deal with them in reality. Right. So, and still a year later, we're still kind of dealing like, I'm not great with my finances. I'm terrible at that stuff. You know, it's why I avoided it. And so we're learning how to do that stuff. Right. But I don't know, man. It's just it's weird. Like it's this honest, like open dialogue with my family of like this is what I'm struggling with, and you know, here's where I'm at. This is why I'm acting the way that I am, and I realize that not everybody has that capability. You know, but that's the kind of vulnerability that we're trying to embody in our podcast. And in my opinion, if you want to change something in your life, that is the level of vulnerability that you have to have with yourself and at least one other person in your life. You know, and it can't just be you, right? A therapist, a psychiatrist, whatever that looks like, a husband, a wife, a brother, a sister, somebody that you really trust that understands how you tick. You know, and I really think that that's important because and I'm in the realm of multiple, you know, like I'm my entire life is on the internet. I really don't care. I think the more that you put things out there, the more that you put your belief system on the front line, the more that you're going to get what you want out of this life. So I don't know. That was a very long-winded answer, but you know, that's yeah. So
We're like, dude, we're letting you go though. Like that. See,
yeah,
I think this is kind of in the spirit of what this whole challenge is.
is about
Uh, yeah, I mean, because the worst thing we can do is sit on the couch eating potato chips, feeling
yeah.
sorry for ourselves because it's freaking dark at well, it's 7:30 now, but you know,
Well,
it's
dude,
dark at 5 o'clock.
and
You
that's the
know?
thing is like we have to stop beating ourselves up for failure because we are imperfect creatures by nature, you know, and it's like we are chasing this perfection, you know, that we see all over social media, right? That we see everywhere. It's thrown in our faces all the time. And then now it's thrown in our children's faces. You know, I mean, there's age limitations on X now for having a profile on there. I mean, it's a problem, right? Like when you start to compare yourself to everybody else, it's game over, man. And in my opinion, that's what alcohol took from me. At least, like I played that game so hard, you know, and I drank myself into somebody that I didn't even realize. And so it's scary. You know, it's really scary. Like I feel bad for the next generation that grew up with that, you know, because that is going to take years to unwind that mentality. And I mean, it did in me. You know, it's taking time. It's there. It's a never long process. You know, but you have to be willing. Like I started lifting weights on Sunday. Weird day to start, but and I've done okay 2 out of the last 3 or 4 days. You know, so I have a choice in front of me, right? I'm 50-50. I could choose to be like, oh, I didn't do it. You know, I'm never going to get to where I want to be physically. It's not for me, or I could be like, you know what? Had a long day. All of these things happened. I ended up having a call with our finance person that lasted way longer. You know what? Not a big deal. I'm going to forgive myself for that one and move on to tomorrow. Right? It's such a different approach. And we're the worst with ourselves. It's like when you look at yourself in the mirror, it's like you're your worst critic. And I feel like sobriety and clarity of mind and all of this stuff has not made my life easier, but it's made me better, right? It's made me stronger, and it's given me the tools that I need to deal with it, and to deal with it in a mature way. Um, and I'm grateful for that. I'm very grateful for that. So yeah,
I think there's a delicate balance. We talked about this morning in
yeah,
our morning networking group, Aaron, but there's this awesome balance of ownership and accountability, but also vulnerability and being able to be raw. And I think if you
yeah,
can find that and find a community of people that allows you to show up to the table and be able to be honest and true about, man, I really let myself down or someone else down and could have done better here, failed myself here, but also not going to beat myself up, but
right,
like being able to take the ownership piece of that, but also just vocalize it in a healthy
totally.
way and
Yeah,
be about
and
your
vocalize it to yourself in a
mm,
healthy way,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Like I think that's
Don't
the
beat
most
yourself
important
up.
thing is like that self-talk piece. Like
Yeah.
however you would talk to somebody else, that's how you should feel and talk to yourself. And
Oh,
and
100%.
if you don't, there's something wrong. That's a guideline, right? That's okay. Hey, checks and balances. Like I'm not feeling overly confident about myself right now.
Yeah.
Why? And my wife hates this in me. I psychoanalyze myself all the time. Uh, but I think it's necessary. I really do, and especially if you want to change something in your life.
Yeah. So I'm curious for you guys. I have a question about starting this podcast together. So obviously you're positioning yourself as leaders in this world of sobriety and being open and honest and raw and vulnerable and removing the mask of masculinity or whatever that might be. I'm curious though, Mitch, as you're struggling through this, have you reflected at all on how much it might be helping right now to have Aaron, to have this podcast when you are in a struggle right now? Like, have you reflected on that piece of it?
100%, absolutely, and it's probably the number two reason I did it. I mean, and I even think Aaron and I, the first time that you and I sat down, man, I think that was like something I felt guilty about. Was like, hey, I kind of want to do this too because it keeps me connected, uh, to the commitments that I've made to the people that I care about in my life. And I think it's if something's important to you, it needs to be at the forefront of your mind all the time. You know, truly important to you. So yeah, I absolutely. And outside of that, the number one reason that we're doing this is to heal our community and help the next generation. And it's just to reach people that are stuck in that abyss because addiction is that it's just chaotic in every sense of the word, and especially alcoholism. Alcoholism is a real dark thing if you're heavily addicted to it, or it can be.
The other side of that is we're doing it for the person that's struggling, but we're also highly encourage friends and family of people that are struggling to listen
Yeah,
because you're going to pick up tips and tricks and things to chat with those people that are struggling in your life.
right.
I mean, life is not intervention. As much as that show Intervention is a great show, and I'm not taking anything away from it, but there's times I'm not a violent person at all. But there's times where someone came at me and said, "Bro, you gotta stop drinking right now." I mean, I
It's
don't
never
know
going
what
to
I would have
work.
done.
It's
It's
never going to
never gonna
work.
work. And I think the biggest thing for those, even let's take alcohol out of the equation. Anybody that's listening that you might know a friend is struggling, ask them how they can help. How are you feeling? Be that person that they can be honest and open to because they might not feel that there's anybody in their life that they can tell them to. Because in my deep dark, when I was living by myself and just living until 5 a.m. when I could wake up and go to work where the alcohol was available, Man, it was a weird cycle that I just couldn't snap out of. And B, I didn't want to tell my mom and dad for whatever reason because I was embarrassed. And then I had to hide it to not get fired. And then all of a sudden, a year goes by and, then it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I read this. It's funny. I saw this. I don't even know where I saw it, but I took a picture of it. It had to have been on Facebook or something. But it was just this quote, and it said, "It's not your job to save them. It's your job to live your life as an example, and do everything you can to help them." And I really think that that is probably the biggest thing that I've tried to embody in my life, in my sobriety. I screwed so many things up and hurt so many people, and then I regret that big time. But I don't regret where I'm at today and the things that I had to go through to get to this point. I think I've forgiven myself for that. But yeah, and it's just living your life as an example. Like, what if you have children, like, what do you want to show your kids? And that was a huge part of me getting sober. So yeah.
I think it's
Um,
good for them to see that. Go ahead, Mindy.
I was gonna say I'm watching the chat here, so I wanted to open it up to our audience too. Now that we've gotten to know a little bit about Aaron and Mitch and what their mission is and what this podcast is all about, and just them opening up to us. Please feel free to comment with any questions or comments, or if you resonate with any of this information, and I'll relay it here. But I did have one question. Someone asked, while we're talking about having people to talk to, is there a good way to reach out to someone and ask how they're doing in a way that opens it up to an honest answer without added pressure? So Justin asked this question.
It's $1 million question. That's not a $1 million question, Justin, but I'll kind of give my take and then Mitch, please feel free to jump in, man. It's not necessarily, I don't know if there's any magic words that's going to pop up more than it is the, I mean, I'm in sales, so I say follow up, but the, making sure they know that you're there. It might take a few different phone calls, a few different texts, but don't be discouraged if you're trying to help this person or trying to get that out of them. There's a certain point where that person has to be ready to communicate. But if you come at it in a way of just, hey, man, I'm here to listen, be there to listen, ask them how they're doing and shut up if they begin to talk. Because there's an old sales strategy that you just let them talk. And then eventually whatever's going to be holding them up from anything is going to eventually come out. And then in this circumstance, I'm struggling because of this and this and this. How can I help? And then shut up. Hey, would it be helpful if we did X, if that's any idea that you have, something meeting on their level, very non-threatening, not, hey, well, you want to go to rehab? Nope, I'm done.
Yeah.
See you later. That's my
This
take.
this is such a tough place to be. The thing that keeps coming to my mind is hate the sin, but love the sinner. And it's if you have somebody that's in addiction that maybe isn't ready, I don't really know. There's not a whole lot that you can do, outside of and this is my opinion. A lot of times people came to me, probably told me I had a problem, but I don't want to hear it, and it had to come from my own heart and my own convictions. And so that's a really hard place to be. There's great resources for it, clinical resources, but I would say if you're really going through something with somebody, I would just continue to love them the most you can. And this is something my dad always told me growing up, but cutting somebody's throat with a feather, it's getting your point across, letting somebody know, like, hey, this is something I'm concerned about. I'm not going to shove it down your throat, but just know that I see it. I love you. Uh, and I'm here to help you when you're ready. But ultimately, addicts are not going to respond well to things like that. And to really answer that true situation, I'd love some more context, but yeah, if it's an addict, I mean, it's just, I think you just got to love them until their wheels fall off. which honestly is unfortunate. Like there are times, and I've lost friends because of it, very close friends. So,
You said something interesting there, dude, about hey, we all see it. Do you think that telling someone that I see you, or I see this problem, do you think, I mean, how would you say that in a real way? Because I thought I was slick and no one knew and all this stuff. Um,
I always
of
told
course,
my
Linnea
I
said right
always
through
told
it.
my wife, and you got to remember too, if this is an addict, you're dealing with somebody that's not in their right mind. So you could do everything right, and it's still going to end up backfiring on you.
Yeah.
And so that's you're dealing with the addiction at this point. It depends on where it's at. But sorry, what did you ask me, Aaron?
Well, just how, like, the best way to say to someone like, "Hey, I see this.
Yeah,
We
dude,
see
it's
this
so
problem in you," and that's hard though, because how do you not come across
I
attacking
think you
them?
just I think you just got to read the room. I mean, I wouldn't call an addict out in front of 20 people. I think you just got to read the room, and if you're close enough to this individual, I think that the opportunity will present itself,
Yeah.
and you'll feel it or you'll see it. But I wouldn't force it. I wouldn't make it awkward. Because it's at the forefront of this person's mind. It's how they operate their life. So you have to think about it, and if they're a full-blown addict, it's their belief system. It's everything they believe in. So you got to think about, you're ripping a belief system away, right? You're taking something away from somebody that they've relied on for so long to manage their life. So my advice to you is to be very cautious in that, and depending on the person. I mean, I would honestly cater this kind of thing to the person's personality. But if they're an educational person or a podcast person, you know send them to our podcast. Obviously, that was a great plug. I wasn't even intending to do that, but there's resources available, and you can gently guide people into those things. uh, I'm a stubborn human being. Most addicts that I met are also that way. So I don't know, man. I think you just got to take all of it into consideration, and operate from a place of love and compassion.
Dude, that's a good point, because I was stubborn. I've told you, all of our guests on a lot of our episodes, that I went to AA specifically, and I was like, nope, I'm out. That's not for me. I was not as
Right.
spiritual as I was then as I am now, and I found my own way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of to what Mitch was talking about, y'all. Is a lot of times people think they have to go to AA or they have to go to hardcore rehab. I
Right.
have a job. I can't leave my job for 10, 20, 30 days. And what we do, again, shameless plug, because why not? We're trying to hear every single way that people got sober. I mean, the guest that we talked to today just stayed on his sister's couch for 10 days. And before that, he was all into it and he didn't care who knew it. He was just all in. This is my life. This is me. I love these Oxycontin, and that's just what I do. So, back to it being a really hard question, read the room, but maybe expose those people to what we're talking about. They'll
It,
find different ways to get
I would
sober that works for them.
what?
like I have an example too of, like, I think sometimes it doesn't even take us one on one. Maybe if it's a really awkward situation and you don't really want to bring it up, I have found that just by knowing you guys or Matt Scaletti, or just having conversations and having it be an organic part of things you talk about, like,
Exactly.
the more we spread the word and normalize that, like, hey, actually, I'm
Yes.
surrounded by a bunch of athletes that run the Run Windsor races, and they are constantly excited when I have NA products at the race because they don't want beer. Or, oh my gosh, have you met my friend Matt? He does this, 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 and this. And, like, in the mix of that, he also is like a big proponent of sobriety is savage. Like, by just normalizing the conversation and just like hyping up that this is kind of a movement and a new thing, that not only everyone is moving to sobriety, or being open if they do have a problem with it, then like it connects the dots. And I think, I had a
Absolutely.
friend reach out to me a couple of weeks ago who I connected with Aaron and Mitch. I don't know if you've been able to connect with him yet, but you know, his thing was like, hey, I have a huge favor. Can you just send me a connecting text with Aaron or Nick or Matt? Because like now I've got all these guys in my life who are very vocal about like, I don't drink. It's not a part of my life
Right.
here by very different reason why, very different paths to what led them there. But like he was asking to be connected because in his circle he felt very intimidated about stepping away from alcohol. And he himself, he didn't feel like he had a huge problem. He just was like, what am I leaving off on the table because I'm choosing to drink? Like, how could
Yeah.
I be better physically, mentally, and in my work if I just didn't? But I'm going to get ridiculed in my social circle
Right.
if I take it away. So can I just have support? So it was kind of a cool moment because it's not like anyone had to approach this individual and say, hey, I think you have a problem. It was just by our community normalizing the conversation and celebrating people like you guys, podcasts
Right.
like yours, conversations, social groups, whatever, and not just this in the box AA and rehab that we have this negative connotation with. But if it's just
Exactly.
well, like
Yes.
this time Mitch and Aaron, and they're doing this podcast with people that are like,
Right.
oh, I get like that's a cool group to be a part of. I want to be a part of that group. And so I think that's my dream for you guys that this continues to just to jump and pile on to those community of people that just become connectors. And I think
Right.
everyone that's watching, to your point, like, and Aaron, you said it, like not everyone has a problem, not everyone is walking away from it. But what we can do is talk about it, and we can talk
Yes.
about this as a
And
resource.
that's and
And
that's
same
the
with mental health. Like let's normalize the
right.
conversation.
Right. And I love that, and it's like if you don't want to share your entire life story, I don't care. All of this is about making better decisions. At the end of the day, and you hit something right on the head, and it's the conversation. And it's just a conversation that we as a society have not had in ever. And it's been kind of this taboo subject. So yeah, I love that. I think that's really smart.
What's really great about the guy that you connected me with was there are times where you kind of have that moment of like, I need help. And then it gets buried months later with booze. But he made the choice to reach out and had that
Right.
moment of strength and acted on it. Cool story about Mitch is when he had this dream and message, and I don't know how deep you want to get into that part of it, but he got up, sprang up to what 3 4 in the morning, something like that,
Yeah,
and
something like
got
that.
down and wrote everything down and jumped in to get the ball rolling on all this financially, everything. That is the moment that you have to capitalize on to
Yeah.
make a difference in whatever it is. You have
And
that urge,
that's
like, I need to stop being lazy. I'm going to go up and run. Boom, get up and run. I mean, Forrest Gump did it. He was just sitting there and all of a sudden he ran across the country 18 times. I mean, come on, it's not that hard.
yeah, and it's I think the biggest thing that I love so much about this podcast is it's my passion, right? And it's my life and all of the hardships that I've gone through and all of the, mental health struggles and things like that. It's a culmination of all of that, and and I'm able to use it in a positive direction. And so for me, it's very spiritual, and it's almost like a calling. I feel like that Aaron and I have like I've always had this intense heart for people, but really the people that maybe kind of get kicked to the curb or are like, oh, you're struggling with that, like we don't necessarily want to deal with that, like those they're still there, and I dealt and I experienced some of that, growing up in places that I never would have thought, and so yeah, it's this is for me, it's so in my heart, and it's such a passion. And rehab and sobriety truly changed my life. Like my wife and my brother showed up in my life and it really gave me my life back. So I just feel like it's our responsibility to our community and the people around us to share that.
There's this really cool comedian I saw. There's just a short little clip, and he was talking about how he's not drinking. I don't know the context behind it, but he's like, yeah, when you say you're not drinking, some people freak out and they're like, whoa, who'd you kill in the driving drunk yesterday? I think that is what we're trying to avoid is for you listening that maybe potentially had that or pass judgment on someone like that's weird. Why aren't you drinking? Like we all are. I think it's just a okay, cool, you're not drinking. Period, end of story. Because there's so many
Yeah,
people that are afraid to stop drinking because of that question, that 5 seconds in their life that they're willing to suffer for years and years and years of drinking, as opposed to just say I'm not drinking. And everybody's like, all right, cool, right on, you're not drinking. High five,
yeah.
right? It,
Dude,
it, it,
I was
it's
the
crazy how
a-hole
many
that
people are afraid
actually,
of that.
well, I was the dickhead that actually made fun of people for that, you know,
Yeah,
when I was in active addiction. And yeah, so yeah, I was definitely that guy.
because it's hard to break away from that. And dude, I was too. Like,
Yep.
you're all your drinking buddies, and all of a sudden you're not doing it because deep down inside, Mitch, we had the problem. We're like, oh, dude, I need you to drink with me. Like, I have a
Yeah.
problem. Misery loves company analogy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of it. It's
Exactly.
hard to break free from that. And you are going to lose friends. And I lost some friends, but you know what? Good riddance because we weren't good with each other. God bless you, but I'm out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you guys are talking to also, a lot of our followers are runners, and there's kind of always this like joke-ish thing. It's not a joke, that's the wrong word for it, but like replacing one addiction for the other. So I mean,
Yeah.
like I know for me, like I'm an adrenaline junkie, I'm a high junkie, I'm like a entrepreneur to the core. Like I want like to do all the fun things. And so, like it's the same thing. Like all of us, we have to be mindful of everything we're doing in this life in moderation. And there's always that, not for everybody, but for a lot of people, especially, ultra runners and runners, there's this like a lot of people, find recovery from substance in something else, in exercise and running in
Right.
moderation. And so there's a I went to a running conference, and the big topic of it was, being mindful about run coaching runners who are replacing one addiction for another, and then within ourselves too, because like we have this personality where we want this thing and we're seeking it and we can't get enough of it. And so there's always kind of that mindfulness too about like it doesn't fit into one box. Like this isn't
Totally.
just touching the people that, got a DUA or are going to rehab or outwardly have a problem. It's kind of something, and I think it all circles back around to being okay to talk about it and to recognize that within yourself and talk about it with others and be honest about how those things are impacting you, and seeking therapy, seeking counseling, seeking talking, seeking a good friend, like you said, even just one person that knows actually what's going on with you, and being able to be vulnerable with all of the things in life that are heavy and hard.
Yeah.
And so I think it goes beyond addiction in this realm too. It's like and all the things, or just struggling with anything in general, and creating that community space for you.
Totally. And it's the old adage, like, two heads are better than one, right? If you're really struggling with something in your life, like for me too, verbalizing it is one way for me to process it, right? Because ultimately it's got to be that head and heart connection before you really start to make these big decisions in your life. And so that's another reason that I love the community, right? And these constant conversations around this stuff is I'm learning so much from the people around me, and pulling wisdom from here and there, and hopefully offering some at the same time. So it's just this really awesome kind of push and pull community, and that's what we want to create, with alcoholics, and something that's just really open and vulnerable.
I have another comment for you. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Aaron. Um, I just had someone comment and said it's about conversation. We've normalized non-sobriety, and having a group will assist with the belonging need that people have behind not being sober. So I think he's talking about like we've normalized the opposite, and like let's
Exactly. Yeah, and
yeah.
you're exactly
and
right. And that's where it's like, I'll tell you this, it was so refreshing to go into rehab and sit around a table full and start telling my stories that in my mind I buried forever in my heart, right? Like these were things I couldn't tell people. And I start telling them and they're laughing. and it's like not necessarily like, oh, that's funny, but it's like this, like, oh yeah, like we've been there, like we get you, you know what I mean? Like, and it was just like this, like, I was like, oh, like you guys aren't going to berate me for all this, so it was this community, and I think that that's what maybe she's referring to, and yeah, that's exactly what we want to do.
Yeah, man, do you remember that run that we went on and I was telling you about my whole Boulder cell phone story?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
that wasn't funny at all. Um, it's
Sorry,
like
not funny.
no, 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 you're laughing, but it's just like some of the things that we just rationalize in our brains when we're all
Yeah.
jacked up is just so very strange. But
I think when he told
anyway,
me that story, I was like, "You did that?" Just the Aaron I know today wouldn't. That's just so far, such a different. But yeah,
yeah, but it just speaks to the community though, and what that whoever commented, thank you so much. It's you have to be able to find people that you can trust to have those
Yeah.
conversations. Maybe not talk about all my driving drunk stories in front of someone I just met. That's not what we're talking about. It's props to you, Mandy and just Sean on that round of being comfortable, like appearing comfortable in a safe spot that we can communicate that to get it out
And I
so that we deal with these things properly. Let's just forget about alcohol for a minute because this is the move through the darkness deal here is mental health is it might just be something eating you alive that is so common that it's kind of embarrassing to talk about. I don't know, food, for example. God, I just eat way too much. I run all these miles and I'm still big. Well, have someone that you can communicate with. Who can you share your meal plans with? Who are you eating? It's no judgment. I guess the judgment thing is must be eliminated, whatever it is, especially around alcohol. God darn.
You know what? But there's a part of that I don't necessarily agree with, dude. And I did say I'm talking about like addiction and stuff like that, but I don't, I don't hide a lot about who I am. I mean, obviously, like you said, I'm not going to go do this, but I'm very comfortable with who I am today.
Yeah, but dude, not
And
everybody's like that though.
I
Everybody's
know,
version of
and
hard
that's
is
what I was going
different.
to say, and I realized that might be uncommon, but it's a really good feeling, dude, to be an open book, and to be confident enough in myself and the decisions that I'm making day in and day out to be like, yeah, there's really nothing here that I need to hide. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like sometimes having conversations with random people has been very therapeutic for me,
Yeah, I
you know?
encourage that, dude. I think, just speaking the same things, like be comfortable to get that stuff out because you're burying it. It's not doing any good
Sorry, I
sitting
thought you
down
were saying
here.
with the other person. Yeah. I thought you were
No,
saying
no,
be
no,
comfortable with
no.
that. Yeah.
No, no, I think we're talking about the same thing where
Hmm.
it's but dude, it's so hard for some people.
I know.
Like it
I
is
know.
so hard because again, it's like it might not be anything what they consider big, like alcohol, opioids, heroin, right? It might just be something like I
But
can't
I've got
help
this,
but eat 15 M&Ms before I go to bed. Like I
but
just
it's a freeing mindset to be like, not, I don't know. It's just weird dichotomy, right? Like we're putting our beliefs on the front line, right? With this podcast. Like I truly believe that the more you're willing to do that, the more that you can get out of life. I really do believe that. And let people judge you for it. Like what is their opinion matter anyways?
dude, I'm
Unless this
kind
is
of
somebody that's very close. Like I realize that I'm kind of going back and forth a little bit, but it's again, I think this balance, right? Of there has to be a little bit of confidence in there too, in who you are, and I don't know. I don't know.
no, you're
Does that
good.
make
It's
sense?
funny. Well, I was just sitting there at that wrestling duel just thinking, and dude, I don't know why, but I'm kind of nervous for my episode to come out on Monday.
I get it, man.
It's
It's
like I'll sit here and talk all day. I'll tell these people these crazy stories, and then yet I'm afraid of this podcast coming out.
That's
Like,
because you went to a level of vulnerability that's not common.
Mhm.
It's not common. It's not common for people to, dude, what's going to happen at some point in time is we have literally put the dark corners of our lives on the internet,
yeah,
right?
that's what I'm saying.
Like that is a level of like, hey, we're here and we're not perfect. I am the first to admit that, yeah, I made a mistake. Yeah, I did that. Failure for me is we try to fail forward in our family. You know, that's something that we say. Like failure is a guideline. It's a tool. It's not something that you should be afraid of. You know, and the second that somebody starts to be like, "Oh, you did that," and hold it over your head, dude, get that person out of your life. You know, because that's that's not healthy, right? Like, and that's surround yourself with the people that will build you up, right?
Yeah.
That will come behind you. People like my wife, you know, that had every right to leave me in the dirt for the things that I said to her, for the probably the things that I said to my kids, you know, and for the chaos that I put my family through in so many different ways. But she stayed. Find those people, you know, and have confidence in yourself, you know, find something that you believe in that wakes you up in the morning, you know, and that drives you. And for me, that's this, you know, that's this platform. And uh yeah, man, I don't know. I feel like I just keep going on these weird random tangents. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. It's cool to see that because again, I kind of probably needed that reminder a little bit. It's only because I'm in a commission-based business and it kind of goes back to
Totally,
the same
dude.
thing before I even did that Stillwater Ranch video where I'm like, "Hey, I'm an alcoholic. Like, here it is out on social media." And
Yeah.
the response was amazing and
Yeah.
people were
we
very,
we
very, very,
live
appreciative of that.
we live in a world where it's hard to know what's true, right? It's hard to know what's true even on the internet. I mean, dude, people are now getting on and saying like, I don't even know if this is really Joe Rogan that said this, because AI can create whatever they want. You know, so the world is starving for authenticity,
Mhm.
Yeah.
for what's real. You know, and that's what we're trying to do is, and there's freedom in that. You know, there's freedom in, hey, here it is. I just told you everything. So now you have nothing against me. You are free. It's
Oh,
the
that's how
only
Eminem
way.
won that rap battle at the end of 8 Mile. What else you got? And he throws away the mic and he
Exactly.
goes home.
You know, and unfortunately, there's people like us, the addict, that have to go to the extreme to figure that out. You know, and unfortunately, Aaron and I are those kinds of people, you know, and I know that there's people that will listen to this that will still go right straight into addiction, because that's exactly what I would have done. You know, that was once my mind is made up, that's it. You know, and nobody can tell me anything, right? So I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know. I
I
just
think
sorry, go
I
ahead.
think there's such strength too, and whether it's whatever vulnerability of hardship that you're going through, of
Yeah,
mental health or substance, or you know, I mean, we talk about business a lot. Like as a business owner, like oh, it's just overwhelming. Like people, I think, are paying attention and they want to learn from the bottom up. They
yeah,
don't really like. We don't really want to know about like the iceberg that's above the water, right? We can't learn a whole lot from that. We want to learn about like what happened underneath the surface of the water. What was
absolutely.
all of this that got you up to the very top? Because
Right.
underneath the surface is a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and that's how we can help each other grow
See,
and
and
learn.
that's what
All
in my opinion, everything above the water is social media,
yeah,
and everything below the water is life.
yeah,
Yep.
You know, and we're all in the same pond. You know, and we're
mhm,
all kicking our feet just as hard. We might as well help each other.
yeah,
So what I
for
love
sure.
about Move Through the Darkness, though, when you think about this, it's the concept is very simple. Let's just keep moving because it's dark. Let's get healthy. Let's run. Let's do the miles. Let's lift or whatever. But on the other side of that, you're going to see, holy cow, I spent 45 hours these last 60 days getting healthy. Look at this. And, now I can run 3 miles. Now I can run a mile now or a 5K or whatever it is. When before you were nothing. No, that was wrong. Didn't even mean that. You were not able to even run around the block. But
Right.
that's what's really cool about this challenge is seeing how great we can get by just putting the effort in. And then it's spring and it's beautiful and it's not freezing
Yeah,
it cold outside. And now we can go do more and
yeah,
build and be better.
yeah. And it's building that below the surface, right? It's that grit and
Absolutely.
determination and all the lessons you learn by getting up early and going when
Yeah.
it's cold or going when it's dark, or even if it's not cold and dark, and just movement in general was hard for you, but you did it, and walking away and just building the base and building the layers and what you
Well,
gained from doing
yeah,
that thing,
and I got to give you guys props. So obviously, like, I'm not a big workout guy. Like, I'm hoping to get to that point. That's part of the journey. But I haven't like beat myself up too much about it. So I told Aaron the other day, I was like, that's just being around you guys and like having that conversation. I finally got some weights and a weight bench, and I'm not doing everything perfect, but I'm getting out there when I have time and moving my body. And, those things I haven't done in years. And that's just from being around you guys, and guys like Matt Scaletti, and Matt Baird and these guys that just move, and they just do it, and you want to change something about your life, go hang out with the people that are doing it well.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like it's all infectious. I mean,
Yeah.
first time I met Mandy, she had just gone back from running level 100. I'm like, she's like this big, and she did a level 100. Like I can at least do a marathon, you
Right?
know.
Yeah,
And then I'm
I
like,
know.
oh my god, this hurts so bad. Why did I say yes to this? But
Right.
her husband Nick is amazing. Everybody in Run Windsor crew is just like
you should see his feet.
I bet they're tore
Nick.
up right now.
Oh my god, is he doing okay? Like, is he recovered yet?
Yeah, he's running. He's doing great. He's back at it. He's recovered. He's in the other room. He's probably like, "Why are you talking about me?" But
Get my name out of
got,
your
I,
mouth.
he's got blisters peeling off to prove
Oh, I
that.
bet.
man,
36
I still gotta see him and give him a
hour.
hug for
See,
doing that.
I got a long way to go, guys.
We'll get you there,
Yeah.
Mitch. Little baby steps. You're doing it. You're getting outside your comfort zone, and that's all that
Yeah,
this is. Really, that's
exactly.
all of this is getting out your
Right.
comfort zone, whatever that realm is the
Yeah,
next discomfort, the
I
next
know.
step. I mean, for me, I got a cold plunge and actually got like a chilled cold plunge I don't have to put ice into, so it's easier to use because now it just stays cold, but now I have to do it every single day, and that's discomfort, like
Oh yeah, that's the
first
worst, man.
first thing in the morning or after coming in from a cold run. It's like the last thing you wanna do, but it's all about discomfort. It's pushing yourself a little bit and, being around someone that's doing something that you're not doing or something
Right.
new or having a conversation you're afraid to have. So yeah, we had a
Yeah,
couple of in the chat that I just wanna read before, we end this. So Cecily and Belinda. Belinda did a shout out. "Proud of you both. Love and miss you, Mitch."
I love and miss you too. Be
She's
awesome to see you. We should grab coffee sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Cecily said, "Thank you both for your vulnerability. I think the sober curious movement is so important for society, and you guys are positively impacting that. We need to
Thank you.
change the way that we view this." Um,
Sess, you're the best, man. Always like a little sister to me.
yeah, and then Justin said, "The world is looking for authenticity," is so true. So
Thank you.
yeah,
I agree.
thank you guys so much for being on. Any
Yeah.
closing remarks? I guess just let our followers know the podcast is live. It's out. You have how many episodes now?
We got 3 episodes live right now on Spotify. So on Spotify, search Shattered Darkness. You'll see a really good logo. It's a white and it's just an SD for Shattered Darkness, and then around it it says, "What good shall I do this day?" Listen to the podcast and you'll understand the meaning of that. It truly is something amazing, and it means everything to my co-host Mitch there.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, YouTube, Shattered Darkness podcast. I keep hitting refresh here and I don't see very many new subscribers. Come on, y'all, let's go.
The other
Kidding.
thing that we're really introducing to our podcast right now is questions. Like, we want to have like a question and answer kind of thing. So if you find yourself listening to it and you have some questions that you'd like us to answer in one of our episodes, you can email us at shatterdarkness5@gmail.com. Yeah, otherwise just subscribe and listen to our episodes. We have 10 coming out over the past 10 weeks, starting from the first of the year. So we have 7 more coming out on Mondays. And then we have a bunch of new stuff that we're recording right now.
Yep. And so, yeah, Shattered Darkness, no co on Instagram as well. We're on Facebook. So always dropping shorts. Please reach out to us.
Yeah,
It's not hard to find my number. I do mortgage loans and I'm not promoting that right here, but find us. Have someone, if you have anybody that's struggling, they can text me, they can call me.
yeah,
Mandy, please vouch for me
likewise.
where I'm a million percent in to help these people. I'm working with 5 people right now. I'm not a licensed therapist, just to be clear,
Yeah.
but I talk to you like a real person. Not to say that therapists don't, but I'm here
And
to
we
help.
have good connections too. We're starting to develop some really awesome connections with facilities around here, and so we can point you guys in the right direction too. But
No.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing your story
thank you.
and being raw. I'm excited to listen to more episodes and
Yeah,
time
thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to come on and do this. This is a lot
for
of
this
fun.
year, Aaron.
What's that?
Excited to see what Mitch ends up signing up for this year.
Yeah, well, if we've all listened to episode 3, we kind of know what he just committed to. So,
Well, I've done more than that. I like literally committed to like running around my block. That's
well, you,
like
well,
I
we
didn't
can't get
do
on
it though.
Spiletti's episode until you run 2 miles.
Is that what I said?
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to go
dude.
back and listen to that, dude. I don't remember that.
Let
I
me
I'll
think
know
you're
on
send
just
you
making.
the,
I just think.
I'll clip it and I'll send it to you. But
All
dude, I'm
right.
training for my 100 miler, so just come
Yeah,
run
you
one
probably
lap with
would
me.
know.
Just for,
All right.
Yeah, I'll join.
I'll
I'll
do it.
join in on helping Mitch get through his.
I'm gonna film it and send it to you guys.
I'll
I'm
race.
gonna be
I'll
puke.
race direct it. I'll bring him a medal.
oh, there we
You guys
go.
are
Yeah.
awesome. Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mandy. This is a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
welcome. It was fun to chat with you guys. We're signing off,
Likewise.
everybody. So by Instagram, follow Shatter Darkness, and we'll see you next Tuesday. We've got Sarah Robertson, registered dietitian, talking about all things nutrition for both runners and non-runners alike. So,
Hell yeah. That's
all
gonna be a
right.
good one.
Sweet. Yep.
Okay. Thanks,
Thanks.
guys.
Thanks
All right.
again. See you later.
Bye.